Again, my name is Ayana Walters. I am Connect to Protect Coordinator for Wayne State University, and we welcome you tonight to our mental wealth project. And we're going to be talking about how nutrition impacts our mood and mental health. And I'm going to read you presenter. It's Gretchen Perry Emery, is a board certified family nurse practitioner, licensed to treat newborns through older adults. She is the owner of Fundamental Health Healing, Inc., founded in 2015, located in Bloomfield Hills. Gretchen has extensive knowledge and clinical experience in treating complex chronic health issues like autism and autoimmune disease. Gretchen works with patients to identify and treat the root cause of disease. She is an advocate for medical freedom and enjoys partnering with patients to help them achieve and improve quality of life. You can learn more about Gretchen and her practice at fundamentalhealing.com. So I welcome you, our presenter tonight, Gretchen Perry Emery.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ayana, for giving me the opportunity to present tonight and give some attention to a topic that doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. We're going to talk a little bit about how our body and our gut impact the way our mental health functions, and some of the objectives that we have we'll be covering in a second. But before we start, trying to get this to, Before we start, I just have a disclaimer that this presentation is just a big picture view of how things work in your body and how your gut and your brain are impacted by food. And what follows is just merely for information and should not be construed as medical advice. If you think you do have a mood disorder, then please seek the care from a qualified licensed professional. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about basic nutrition. We're going to talk about the gut and how that functions, just kind of a big picture. We're going to talk a little bit about brain function and then how the two of them relate. And then I'll give you some tips on improving mood and mental health with 8 strategies that you can take away. So for starters, the benefits of eating healthy are really what's going to provide you with the kind of chemistry that you need to get your brain and your body to function the way it's been designed to work. And a balanced diet of the recommended food groups that we'll go over in a minute provides your body with a mix of micro and macronutrients. If you're not familiar with those are, macronutrients are referred to carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and you can see some examples there on the screen of those categories. And then micronutrients are literally what you're getting out of those foods. So that would be vitamins, minerals, amino acids, cholesterol. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of work through things and how they can contribute to the brain function. When it comes to eating healthy, staying alkaline is pretty important if you want to maintain good health inside your body. And when you're eating alkaline, it's not necessarily eating foods that are sweet, but eating foods that are real earthy in flavor and in taste, things that are sour, things that are bitter, your leafy greens. Those are the things that are going to end up alkalinizing your blood. Citric acid is another example of something that can alkalinize your blood, that citrus that you would be getting from some of the different fruits that you would eat, like oranges, lemons, and limes. Sometimes people will try to alkalinize their body with water. That's not a great idea because it's going to change the environment in the gut, which can actually make you a better host for fungals, and it can interfere with some digestion, setting you up for having more gut problems down the road. So if you're a big alkalinized water drinker, I'm going to encourage you to kind of rethink that and drink things that are a little bit more pH balanced. Maybe a bottle once in a while after a hard workout, but you definitely don't want to make that part of your daily routine. A clean diet is going to reduce your inflammation, and when your inflammation is reduced, you're going to have more energy, you're going to feel better, and your mood's going to be more lifted. And then a whole foods diet, which is really focusing on foods that are, in my opinion, grown the way God created us to consume them. are ones that are not going to be modified. They're not going to be processed. Those are foods that you're going to be bringing home, you're going to be cooking and kind of creating your own meal with. So not getting like the turkey at Kroger or the chicken at Kroger that's pre-cooked and getting it on the run. And then when you eat things that are a little bit cleaner, that don't have the preservatives in them that you would get in those other foods, you're going to have better focus, better attention, which, less ADD, less ADHD, your mood's going to feel better. And even people that have some behavior disorders or insomnia, you're going to see some of that stuff kind of fall away. So the US government puts out what they call their portions food grouping. And I'm a huge advocate of eating lots of fruits and vegetables and the ancient grains. Proteins are important. And when we think of proteins, I think we're traditionally kind of ingrained to think about animal as being our source of protein. But it's important to know that you can get protein from anything that's living, and we're completely made up of protein. And protein actually is made up of amino acids. We'll talk about that a little bit because the amino acids are the basic building blocks that make the protein of all the foods that we eat, but then they also make the protein that makes up our body. And so this is Dr. Mercola's food pyramid. He is a naturopathic doctor. He's been around for quite some time. It's a little bit different than the old food pyramid that we used to see, where some of the breads and the grains were more on the bottom. He's putting more of the vegetation that's low glycemic index, that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, on the bottom. And then the next layer is going to be the protein, which is going to burn slow and fuel the body. And then you have your fruits, which all have a little bit higher glycemic index or more sugar. And then at the very top is the grains. It is important to eat grains, in my opinion, every single day. Ancient grains specifically are the ones that are going to burn slow. And examples of those would be like buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, and brown rice. And when you eat those, they're not going to spike your blood sugar and then have it drop out. You're actually going to have a blood sugar that's sustained in a nice range for a period of time, as opposed to just eating like a piece of white bread or a bowl of mashed potatoes. So your gut health really does matter. 85% of the immune system is in your gut. And there are actually about 500 different species of beneficial bacteria that are going to weigh 2 to 3 pounds in your gut. Your gut drives the way your nervous system works, your immune system works, and obviously the way the digestion works. The bacteria needs to be balanced in order for digestion and nutrient absorption from your foods to happen the way it's been designed to happen. The gut is really like a second brain in that there's so many nerves in it. It's similar to the amount that are actually in the small intestine, equal to the spinal cord. And then all the chemicals that regulate the mood in the brain actually do also reside in your gut. And most of the stuff that you need to make the brain chemistry happen comes from the beneficial bacteria and what they make, that then combines with vitamins, minerals, and amino acids to make the neurotransmitters that keep you feeling peaceful, lifted, focused, and driven to accomplish tasks. One thing I share with all of my patients is that you have to make sure that you're really taking your time when you're eating. Now, I always say your gut does not have teeth. So when you're eating, really make sure you're chewing your food 11 to 15 times. So it's, broken down enough that your stomach is going to be able to then do the rest of the job that it needs to do. Once you swallow your food and it hits your stomach, it immediately signals for hydrochloric acid to be produced. And that then signals for pancreatic enzymes to be produced. And then that signals for bile to be produced. So without getting too technical, all of those things help us break down the proteins that we bring in into the basic forms that we want to get into our bloodstream. And so one of the things that I just want to touch on at this point is, you have an autonomic nervous system. It's a system in your body that automatically works. And there's 2 arms to it. There's an arm that is responsible for making cortisol, which we do when we're stressed, fight or flight. It's putting you into a sympathetic state where everything kind of tightens up and hydrochloric acid isn't being produced. Then you have this other arm where you have rest, relaxation, and digestion. And when you're in that state, that's when digestion can happen optimally, because you're going to be producing the hydrochloric acid, which then leads to the other processes of digestion to happen the way that they're supposed to. So if there's one takeaway from the slide, it's make sure you chew your food. Make sure you're not stressed when you're eating. You know, if you're one of those people that's on social media all the time when you're eating, and there's a lot of not so great stuff going on in the world and it's kind of stressing you out, it's better to just put it aside and just really try to focus on the moment and try to relax. The other thing too is if you're somebody that's eating on the run, just make sure you're chewing it well. If you're eating on the run, you're already going to be reducing hydrochloric acid because of stress. You don't want to compromise the digestion even more because your food isn't chewed well. Now let's talk about your brain health and some of those basics. So the brain is actually about 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of the resources that we bring in from a nutritional standpoint. And if you were to suck all the moisture out of it, it would be mostly fat. And that's why having good fats in your diet is critical to good brain health. We are pretty much what we eat. So, you know, you're not going to be able to sustain the chemistry in the body if you're not taking in the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids that you need. If your diet is mostly composed of, you know, chips and packaged food that is high in sugar and low in nutrients, then you're just not going to be fueling your brain properly. Food impacts the way you feel because the nutrients in it, as I said, are the building blocks to the chemistry, and the primary chemicals that your brain is going to make are GABA and glutamate, which GABA is really peace and calm for the body, and glutamate is neuroexcitatory. It gets us kind of anxious, revved up. Sometimes when people have trouble sleeping or focusing, it's because they have too much glutamate going on in their brain. And there's actually some foods that can increase glutamate that can set you up for that state. Foods that are processed tend to have things like guar gum, xanthan gum, and maltodextrin and citric acid in them. Other foods like that have things like MSG or natural enhancers for flavoring tend to ignite that production of glutamate in the brain, which can kind of set your GABA and glutamate balance off and set you up to be in that anxious state. So if you have a piece of advice here in regards to GABA, it would be to try to get rid of that processed food that you might be eating that could be triggering more glutamate production. And to boost GABA, focus on foods that are high in carnitine and riboflavin, which is a B vitamin. Things like almonds, walnuts, potatoes, broccoli, oranges, spinach, and banana are all going to help you support the production of GABA when they're broken down well in the gut because of some of the amino acids and the nutrients that are in them. As far as serotonin goes, that's something that keeps you lifted and happy. And if you're not making serotonin, then typically you're not making a whole lot of melatonin, which actually helps with sleep. Serotonin needs tryptophan. Serotonin needs magnesium. It needs a lot of B vitamins in order to be produced properly. And those B vitamins are going to come mostly from your vegetables. Tryptophan is high in salmon, nuts, seeds, turkey, and eggs. So, you know, if you want to try to incorporate some of those foods into your diet, if you're feeling a little down, they should work over time to kind of boost your mood. And then dopamine is the chemical that gives us a drive to complete tasks. It makes us the go-getter. People that are type A tend to be overproducers of dopamine sometimes, where they're kind of always running a little high wound. Things that can boost dopamine if you're somebody that's struggling with it are foods like lentils, seeds, chicken, and eggs. Choline is important as an amino acid to make acetylcholine, which allows the firing in the brain to happen the way it needs to for recall and memory. And foods that are high in choline are avocado, eggs, broccoli, turkey, and chicken. And then the last thing we'll touch on is endorphins. Endorphins are feel-good chemicals. When you go exercise, your endorphins are released, and that's what makes you feel really lifted and almost gives you that natural high. there are some foods that can actually act on that receptor and help support the production. Things like dark chocolate, things like strawberries, oranges, ginger, and all sorts of the legumes like the pinto beans and the black beans are also really good at supporting endorphin production. So let's talk a little bit about the gut and the brain and how they work together. The gut is connected to the brain by something called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve basically communicates whatever's going on in the gut to the brain and vice versa. You know, our body was designed to have the digestion process be in one organ. It starts in your mouth, it ends at the rectum where the stool comes out, and literally nothing is supposed to be going into your bloodstream unless it is desired by the bloodstream. There's a charge that's pulling it there, and that would be things like minerals, vitamins, amino acids, and lipid particles. Okay, so when you have a leaky gut, what's going on is the junctures that line the digestive tract are loose. And things that will make it loose over time are too many antibiotics. Antibiotics kill the good bacteria and sometimes will open the door for unhealthy stuff to grow. And the unhealthy stuff will make something that loosens the junctures. One food specifically that causes an increase in the production of a chemical called zonulin that loosens the junctures is gluten. So when I work with people that have mood disorders, the number one thing I tell them to avoid at all costs is going to be gluten, because it's eventually going to get into the bloodstream if it's not digested well and get over into the brain and impact the way the brain feels. Interestingly enough, what is bringing together the integrity of the gastrointestinal tract also brings together the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. So zonulin, as I said, which can be increased and loosen the junctures with gluten consumption, is also increased with stress. And that's why stress management is so very important. And then the zonulin that is keeping the integrity of the gut intact is equally responsible for keeping the blood-brain barrier intact. So that's where, you know, if you have any kind of gut issue going on or a mood issue going on, you got to understand that the junctures are probably a little loose. You probably want to do some things with a provider to work to try and get them a little bit tighter, and then think about changing the diet so that when things do get into the bloodstream that aren't digested well, should they get into the brain, they don't cause a chemical imbalance to occur. Honestly, no one is exempt from this phenomena happening in the body. Unfortunately, the food that we eat these days and the stress that we're under, everybody has a leaky gut to a certain extent. And I feel like with every person that I work with, I'm constantly trying to help them to do some damage control to the gut because of either medications that they had to take or, you know, eating a diet that might have a lot of chemicals on the food that kills the good bacteria in the gut over time. So what can you do to try and tone that vagus nerve to keep your body from slipping into this fight or flight state really easily, which would increase, you know, the junctures being loose and increase cortisol, which makes us more revved up and anxious? There's a couple of activities that you could do to tighten up and tone up the vagus nerve. The biggest one is yoga. Yoga is really good at relaxing the body and toning the vagus nerve. And when the vagus nerve is toned, then you're going to try to, or you're going to have a better job of keeping the gut and the brain kind of separate from each other. The other thing that's really good at doing that is breathing techniques. There's a breathing technique called the Wim Hof, WIMHOFF breathing technique. It's used all the time with people that come in here that have anxiety disorder, people that have a lot of gut issues that, you know, are easily having gut problems from stress. And doing that technique and practicing it regularly can really help separate the brain and the gut so that when you are stressed, you're not going to have a pattern of falling into GI dysfunction so easily. This is a little picture of just the junctures. The tight junctures are on the left, the leaky junctures are on the right. And you can see, like in the stomach, which is in the top part, you've got organisms, good bacteria, not so great bacteria, toxins that are made from bad bacteria. Then you got particles of food, you got some gluten there, And then what happens is that stuff assaults and allows for these junctures to become loose. And then when the stuff gets into the bloodstream, you can have everything from, nutrient absorption issues because it's not broken down real well, to inflammation being driven by food sensitivities because these foods don't belong in your bloodstream as a whole. They're supposed to be broken down into their simplest form. You can get the intolerances, not necessarily intolerances that you might feel in the gut. Only 1 in 8 people actually feel a gut problem when they have one. And, that's a really interesting fact. The majority of the people that are walking around are having bacteria that's kind of out of balance. And pretty much everybody has an intolerance to a handful of foods that I test. I've not had somebody at this point do food sensitivity testing, even with well visits that come in that are interested, and not identify some foods that they are going to be sensitive to. Typically, the foods that you're going to be the most sensitive to that are going to cause chemical imbalances in the brain or inflammation or fatigue or joint issues are going to be the ones that you crave the most. So if you are a mac and cheese person or a pizza person, then I would tell you that the milk and the wheat in that food is probably something that's provoking a little bit of a mood imbalance in you. Whole foods diet leads to good neurochemistry. So getting back to the whole foods, again, things that are kind of like farm to table, you're preparing it. When you're shopping, shop on the perimeter of the grocery store. Those are the things that are perishable, that they're only going to last for a certain period of time. Those are things that are going to be closer to being able to be purchased and consumed in the way that we were intended to eat them. Things that you find in the aisles that are in boxes and cans and jars and such, most of those things in general are going to be processed. And as things get processed, you lose the nutrients that they will naturally possess. So, when you process something, you want to extend the shelf life. So what you're going to do is you're going to heat it to such a high temperature. And when you do that, you're going to kill some of the beneficial stuff that's in it. Often some of the enzymes that are in it that we actually use with the own enzymes that we're producing, our own, will help us break the food down appropriately. And so sometimes when people have digestion issues, moving to more of, a perimeter diet, a plant-based diet, and less of a processed diet can make a huge difference in the way the gut feels. Another thing that's really hard on the gut and on the food when you bring it in and kind of losing its properties is using a microwave. A microwave will wreck the good enzymes in food. If there's any fat or oil in the food, when you use the microwave, it will turn it into a carcinogenic type thing. If you're not familiar with carcinogens, they can cause cancer over time. So try to get away from the microwave, try to use a stove top. Try to get a toaster oven if you can. And, they're not that expensive. Sometimes you can get an air fryer where it will also, take potatoes where it would almost give them the texture of a French fry. So there's different options out there for heating up food. Our digestion is largely depending on the naturally occurring enzymes in food. So just remember that when you're grocery shopping, if you're struggling with food sitting and not really moving through the rate that it feels like it should. The other thing is that food that is processed is typically going to be higher in sugar because they're making up for some of the taste that is lost with the processing. And that's just not a great thing for your body. Pretty much everybody makes antibodies to sugar, and pretty much everybody has fungal overgrowth to a certain degree. I would say there's maybe only a handful of people that I've ever checked that haven't had some kind of fungal growing in their gut. And sugar is what's going to feed that. So if you want to try to reduce fungal growth, which can lead to constipation and brain fog and anxiety and agitation, it would be wise to try to reduce the sugar. A lot of people are addicted to sugar. And, when you get that stuff out of your system, you can expect to feel a little off, potentially a little agitated for maybe 7 to 10 days. That's not unheard of. But once you completely get it out of your system and you're not just going back to it periodically, you're going to feel amazing and you're not going to desire that food. It's only when you have an event where you kind of cheat a little bit that you might fall off the wagon and start going down that path again where you start to crave it more and more and get into that cycle of feeding the yeast, which can lead to more health problems. So the takeaway points from the first part of this is that if you're struggling with food, it's super important to look at your diet. And then also rethink comfort foods. If you're struggling with anxiety, instead of going for the mac and cheese, which is going to give you maybe a gratification, some relaxation for an hour or two, go for foods that are going to comfort your gut. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get on this up and down cycle with those foods, highs and lows, highs and lows. And you're going to keep craving them and wanting to go back for more. So try to nourish your body with some other things. If you're feeling down, maybe think about a hard-boiled egg. Maybe think about a turkey rolled with some avocado, because those are things that are going to help with the GABA and the serotonin, which are going to help you feel peaceful and lifted. And then when the gut is balanced, the mood does stay lifted. So here are some takeaways I have for you guys that you can just start implementing right away. Eat regularly. Now, I know there's a lot of fad diets out there, and there's a lot of intermittent fasting and things like that some of this generation will do. It's important to eat. It is important to fuel your body so your blood sugar is stable, because if your blood sugar is not stable, it's stressful. And when your body is stressed, you make cortisol, and cortisol will contribute to your anxiety, contribute to some thyroid instability, which leads to a lot of other problems in the body. But then it also can cause your metabolism to really slow down. And then you'll get to the point where you're eating less and less. And if you're someone that's struggling with weight, you'll feel like you just can't drop weight. So eating a macro diet that's balanced and, eating consistently throughout the day to fuel your body is really what we need to be doing. If your blood sugar drops, it's going to make you tired. It's going to make you irritable. It's going to make you anxious and hangry and depressed. And if you eat a lot of sugar at once and your blood sugar spikes, that's going to make you tired too sometimes after you first get your sugar buzz from it. So eat the foods that are higher in protein, because they will release the energy more slowly, and focus on the slow burning ancient grains that I discussed, which are the buckwheat, brown rice, amaranth, and then the nuts, the seeds, some of the whole grains to snack on. Eat good fats. Most of your brain is fat. There's 3 omegas that we focus on in what I do with nutrition. Omega-3s are going to cut inflammation in the body, and they can really support the brain, and they can also help you detoxify some of the unnecessary toxins that will accumulate from things that come into our body, either from what we eat, what we breathe, or what we put on our skin. Omega-6s come from things like flax and grasses. And when you bring omega-6s in, your body does have the ability to convert some of that to omega-3s. And then omega-9s are something like olive oil, are really important for the fluidicity of a cell membrane. You want to be able to bring things in and out of cells easily, and having a nice amount of omega-9 in your system can help your body do that. Don't avoid all fats. Eat the right ones. There's some pictures here of some good ones. You got salmon, avocado, nuts, nut butters. I have a list there of some various good fats. And, some of the organic butters, if you can get your hands on those, are good.
Gretchen, we have a question in the chat.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Regarding sugar, my weakness is ice cream. Can you suggest a substitute, not frozen bananas, because they don't agree with my stomach?
Okay. So if you have a craving for sugar, one of the easiest ways to try and get off of sugar is to use a really good honey. Manuka honey is what I typically recommend. It comes in varying degrees of potency. The higher the K factor, the better it is for your gut, because it's got natural antimicrobial properties, which will kill things that are not necessarily good in your gut. And what you can do is you can dip a spoon into the honey, and you can just suck on it and let it get into your bloodstream through your mucous membranes, let it get up into the brain. So it's kind of triggering a little bit of what you need. And doing that over time, you will reduce your cravings and your desires. Now, if you want an ice cream substitute, I would say that any kind of frozen dessert is going to have sugar. right? So there wouldn't be any like replacement. Like if you went for like a coconut ice cream or an almond milk ice cream, you're still going to be getting sugar. So I think the idea would be to just get away from the sweets altogether if you can. The other thing you might try is some of those natural frozen popsicles, or maybe you can do some juicing and get creative and you can buy like a popsicle kit. So you're not doing just pure like cane sugar. You're actually using sugar in a little bit of different form that wouldn't be as much of an assault on your gut and, you know, and on the addiction that you have to it. Did that answer the question okay?
Does local honey really make a difference? Thoughts on monk fruit?
Monk fruit? Monk fruit, okay, so monk fruit is better than sugar, but it's still gonna do something with the glycemic index a little bit, right? If you want something that is gonna taste like sugar, and there's only certain kinds out there that you'll get this property from, you wanna use stevia. Stevia is 300 times sweeter than sugar. It's an herb. It is an antioxidant. It is wonderful to cook with. And the brand that I use is KAL. They do sell an organic version, and I actually have a bottle right here. I don't know, is my camera on right now?
It's off.
It's
Actually,
off.
you're actually it's like
It says on my end that it's on.
okay, good. Okay, it's off now. It's like you were like your picture was
Oh,
frozen.
I was on. Okay, I don't know how to like.
Go
Gosh. What did I just do?
Go to
It's
like
a
where it
part.
says start camera and just go the arrow
I
up.
did, and I'm clicking on it, and it's not undoing that mark. So I don't know what just happened. Let me just see here if I
It blinked
can.
for a second.
Fred. Video settings. Video. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's okay.
So there is a brand called KAL. I really wanted to show you the picture of it. I'll keep hitting this and maybe it'll come back on. You can see the rest of the screen though, right? My screen
Yes,
share.
yes.
Okay. So if you go to Amazon or if you go to Whole Foods or Better Health, you can buy KAL Stevia. Inside it, it has a little teeny tiny scooper that's about 1/8 of a teaspoon in size. That is actually equal to 1/2 cup of sugar. So when you're using recipes to bake, what I typically do is I will replace the amount of sugar in a recipe with stevia, and then to make up for the volume, I will use ground flax. So if I have a cookie recipe that calls for 2 cups of sugar, each of those scoops of KAL is equal to 1/2 cup of sugar. So I will use a total of 4. And then I will also do 2 cups of ground flax. And when you use flax, because it kind of cements things together, you always want to mix it in as one of your last ingredients. And it will give it the browning, it'll give it the texture that the sugar would normally do when it bakes, and you would have the sweetness as well. Just got to be careful when you use something like stevia because it is so sweet that if you're putting it in tea or coffee, you just got to use the littlest amount, like a dusting of it, to really give it the sweetness that you desire. It does work really well with lemonade and iced tea too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Stevia, is that similar to like there's like all these fake sugars like xylitol and other?
Yeah. So no, it's not a sugar alcohol. It's an herb. It's a botanical. And when you get stevia, the other thing that's important to know is that there's 2 kinds. You can get it from the leaf or you can get it from the stem. You don't want to use the one from the stem because it's not going to have the antioxidant properties that the leaf does. The KAL only ever comes from the leaf. That's why I use that brand. Yeah. So the one thing just to touch on too, since you mentioned xylitol, xylitol is a sugar alcohol, but it's unique in its properties. It's got a property that's similar to stevia in a way because it will actually lyse biofilms in the body. Biofilms are these, they almost, to describe them, is like a cellophane around a resistant organism, bacteria, fungal, viral that you might have that your body's not really recognizing, that's kind of living off of you. Xylitol will lyse those to make those organisms more noticeable by your immune system. Stevia does the same thing.
What does lyse mean?
It means it breaks it. It just kind of like
Oh,
breaks it off. It
Okay.
takes that protective film off of it, so your immune system can then recognize it. When it makes that protective film, that's where you're getting resistant, like bacteria, resistant organisms that sometimes can't be treated with antibiotics or medications.
Hmm.
Okay.
Interesting. Thank you.
So one of the other things I just want to add is choline. Choline is really high in eggs. And if you struggle with recall and memory, try to get some more eggs, try to get some more turkey and broccoli and salmon into your system, because those are wonderful sources of choline without having to supplement it. Okay, now I can't even move my screen. Gosh, I can't even go forward. I'm not sure what happened here, Ayana.
Go down to start, where it says start video at the bottom. It says where it's like, it should be like a red slash line that says start video.
I don't have that. So I'm in the full screen mode. And if I try to get out of it and hit escape, it's not doing anything. I don't know what just happened. Oh, there we go. Oh, now it's moving. Okay. Maybe it'll start playing my, nope, not going to do my picture yet. All right. So proteins, proteins are important, right? And amino acids are the basic building blocks that make up proteins. We need to get enough of our amino acids in. You have essential and you have non-essential. So essential means you essentially need to get them from food or you're not going to have them. Non-essential, you typically will be able to make inside your body. And then in order to do everything that our body wants to do, the essential and the non-essential come together along with our vitamins and our minerals and everything else to carry out the chemistry, to do, you know, the brain chemistry that we want to have. It's really important that you use real protein and not protein powders regularly. Protein powders are usually going to be hydrolyzed. And when you consume something hydrolyzed, it's going to increase glutamate in the brain. So if you're somebody that struggles with anxiety, you definitely don't want to do protein powders. The second thing about protein powders is typically when you get one, it's going to have a blend of like pea, rice, or sometimes they'll have whey in them. And when you're using the same thing every single day, you can bet that at some point that protein is not going to be broken down 100% and you're going to start to make antibodies to it. So I usually tell people, try to rotate your foods, try to get your protein from foods as best you can. If you have a really good blender, you know, and you don't want to use a protein powder, but you like smoothies, you can always put some frozen fruit in there. You can put in a half of an avocado. You can maybe put in a little bit of a coconut milk or a dehydrated coconut milk powder. And then you can throw in some nuts and seeds and kind of blend that up. People that are vegan have to be really careful about the kind of proteins that they bring in because you want to make sure that you're getting all of your essential amino acids. Typically with the powders, like I said, avoid them. I think the only exception would be if you were doing peptides. Peptides or collagen peptides. So some people will do collagen because they think it's good for their joints or their skin or their hair. Again, that's a whole protein. But if you do collagen peptides, you're actually just doing the amino acids that can synthesize the collagen in our body. And that would be something that would actually be okay to do. So protein has the amino acids that can regulate your thoughts, your feelings, and support healthy blood sugar levels. And then it will help you sustain energy, as I had said before. Eating the leaner meats and some of the legumes and nuts are the way to go. One of the things too I want to throw out there is that if you are vegan, if you're not familiar with hemp hearts, or even if you're not vegan, hemp hearts are a great source of protein. And they're actually the only vegetation that grows that is a complete protein. Complete proteins are typically animal because they're going to have every amino acid in them, right? But a hemp heart actually has all of the amino acids and is considered a complete protein. It's not working again. There we go. I guess I'll go this way. All right. Drink lots of water. 75% of your body is water. Adults, it's more like 65%, but you can't detoxify if you don't drink water. You're not going to make bile, which gets rid of all the toxins in your body and helps to digest a lot of the fats and complex carbohydrates, if you don't drink water. One of the telltale signs of dehydration is a headache, right? Another one is brain fog. And if you weigh 150 pounds, then you should be drinking about 75 ounces of water. So, you know, if you weigh 100 pounds, you drink 50 ounces. And that doesn't include other juices and coffees and teas. This is just pure water. So make sure you're staying hydrated, because that's going to help with energy as well too. And then when you drink enough water and you're detoxing properly, inflammation goes down, which allows more serotonin to be produced. Constipation is never comforting, right? It always hurts when you're constipated. It can make you feel tired. It can make you feel moody. It hurts. It zaps your energy. Drinking more water can help with that. And then also, you know, eating an array of the vegetation that I had alluded to, fruits, vegetables, grains, those are all going to help with constipation, getting away from the processed stuff that usually has more sugar that would feed fungal or yeast, which is very constipating to the body. If you're not a big water drinker, one of the ways you could start drinking more is maybe infusing it with something like raspberries or strawberries, just throwing them in a pitcher, and then, you know, after a half of a day, drinking that. Sometimes cucumber water can taste really good if you want to try that. So just some ideas there. And then one of the most important takeaways about water would be not to drink tap water if you can help it, because it's loaded with tons of toxins and metals. And if you're getting it from a common water supply, you're typically going to be getting a lot of the toxins and things that other people are eliminating that go to the common water supply. If you're drinking water that's from a well, or you're drinking spring water, then you're going to be drinking water that is sourced from the ground, that could potentially have crops that are sprayed around it, golf courses, industry. You've got acid rain. So if you're going to drink water, I usually try to tell people, if you can purchase water in a bottle, if you don't have a system, then try to do stuff that's distilled or that's purified by reverse osmosis, which is going to give you as close to H2O as you can possibly get, right? And if you have a refrigerator that has a filter, I mean, that's at least better than drinking tap. I would drink from that instead of drinking from the tap. Sometimes you can buy inexpensively these little pitchers at like Walmart that are like Britas, and they have a carbon filter, and even that will pull out some chlorine and some metals and things like that that could be harmful to the body.
What if you boil the tap water? Will that kill off?
So boiling it is actually going to concentrate the toxins. It would kill virus, bacteria, fungal, and organisms that would live, but it's not going to get rid of metals. It's not going to get rid of the pharmaceuticals that are in the water supply from other people. I mean, that's an unfortunate thing, and it's a hard thing. I mean, even going and just getting like maybe a filter for on the tap, something is always better than nothing, right? You got to do what's within your budget. There is a pretty decent water filtration system that you can get on Amazon called Wave Enviro 10-stage. And it's literally like this little tower that it's a filter that you hook up to your faucet, and the water will push through it and then come out a little nozzle on the other end of the device. They usually run around $79. And I think like for one person that could last you 6 months to a year. And that's pretty good, because that's got 10 stages of filtration. It's not going to be reverse osmosis, but it's going to be better than a Brita, and it's going to be better than bottled, because you're not getting the plastic in the water as well too. Right. So again, eating an array of vegetables, that's point number 5. Minerals for mood. So zinc and copper need to be balanced in the body. If zinc and copper are not balanced, then you're opening the door for bipolar, schizophrenia, and some serious mood disorders. People that are low in zinc tend to have more skin issues, more immune issues. A lot of times they'll struggle with thyroid disorder. Zinc is a cornerstone of the lining of the lower digestive tract. So eating foods that are higher in zinc are helpful. Two or three that come to mind would be broccoli, Brazil nuts, almonds. I mean, those are huge for zinc sources. And then even maybe taking a multivitamin that has at least 15 milligrams of zinc in it would be helpful. As far as the copper goes, people that have adrenal issues and thyroid issues, sweaty palms, clammy feet, or kind of sweat a lot of times they'll struggle with zinc and copper balances, and copper might be a little low and they need to get more of that in their system. So again, I wouldn't go and just like put a bunch of stuff in your system without really knowing where your body's at. And that's something that you could always ask a provider to look at for you. When you look at minerals, you don't want to just know what's in your serum. You want to know what's on an RBC. So if you're going to get testing done with your doctor, ask them for a zinc RBC, stands for red blood cell. You want to know what your body's able to use at a cellular level, not just what's circulating. Same thing with copper, RBC, magnesium, RBC. All of these minerals can be learned, you know, from an RBC lab reading. Iron, super important for energy. And your thyroid, if your thyroid is not working great and it's low, then you're going to be tired. You might have hair loss. Sometimes you have extremities swelling, lower extremities. Those are big ones. And then, you know, issues with losing weight and your metabolism not working great. If it runs high, a lot of times you have hair loss, you'll have a low appetite. You might be somebody that's just not really ever that hungry, and you don't realize how hungry you are until you start to eat. And then you're like, oh, I was really hungry. Or if it's too high, you might get nauseated and just not feel like eating. So a lot of times traditional medicine will just look at like one thyroid number. When you go see your doctor, if you suspect something's off, would ask them for a full panel of your thyroid, as well as these minerals. These are the minerals that are going to support its function. And iron in general is something that I find people either to be way too high in or way too low in. It's not all that often that they're where they need to be, unfortunately. I find that people either, you know, will eat too much red meat, too much lamb, red meat, and buffalo or bison, which is really high in iron. And then they're doing dark leafy greens on top of that. And too much iron in your body can be really hard on your organs. It can actually damage them. It can cause joint pain, right? And then the opposite of that would be too low iron, where you're not going to be able to transport oxygen around to your tissues to make you feel like you got energy. So getting your iron checked when you go in for your annual blood work is something that I think is prudent to do. So we talked a little bit about the vitamins A, D, E, and K. Those are fat soluble vitamins. So those are vitamins that actually will build up in your system over time if you take them. Vitamin D is a cornerstone for mood and skin. Really important to make sure that you have a robust reference range. I think traditional medicine's cutoff is 30 for what's considered normal. I'm going to tell you that that's just way too low. You really want your level to be around at least 50 if you can get it there. And when you supplement vitamin D, you always want to make sure that if you're taking it in like a capsule with a powder, that you're accompanying it with a fat or an oil to help facilitate good absorption. Most of the vitamin D on the market that you do daily is going to come in a gel, right? And that would be okay because you would absorb it if it came in with a little bit of a liquid, an oil. But if you're not, and you're getting in another form or a pressed tablet, make sure that you're doing a fat or an oil with it to help your body absorb it. The B's are going to help you with energy production. The B's are going to help your liver detoxify. The B's support your thyroid. The B's support serotonin and all of these neurotransmitters that keep you peaceful. So if you're not eating foods that are going to give you the B's, then maybe taking a daily B supplement could help your mood. Definitely eating things that are dark leafy greens are going to give you the B9, the B12, the B6, and then eating things that are going to give you like B1, B2, B3 would be some of the oranges and the red colored type foods. Thiamine B1 is something that is really important for blood sugar management. And if you're someone that is like a magnet to mosquitoes, that is a huge sign that you probably have a thiamine deficiency. People that swell and get really irritated more so than the average person when they get bit by mosquitoes, that typically means that your thiamine is a little bit low. Riboflavin is also something that if you get headaches regularly or migraines, that is one of the first things that is plugged in from a functional medicine standpoint to kind of resolve that. Number one is dehydration. And then number one would be looking at dehydration and intake of water. And then number two would be making sure your riboflavin level is sufficient. Are there any questions that I need to answer? I see.
Yeah, there's one from Kelly. I drink eternally pure water. She wants to know, are you familiar with that water?
Which one is it?
Eternally pure water.
I've heard of that. I don't know if that is reverse osmosis or distilled. Whenever you pick up a bottle of water, you can always look at the label and it can tell you how that water got purified. And typically, if it's not by reverse osmosis or distilled, it's not going to tell you that. And if it is, they're going to put it on the label. So I would look for that. You can also sometimes go to the websites and see how that water is purified. Amino acids like the ones I listed, choline, for memory and recall. Tyrosine is important for your thyroid. Tryptophan comes from turkey. It makes us feel relaxed. It boosts serotonin. There's just some things that I listed there. Fiber feeds the good bacteria in the gut. And then again, that's going to combine with the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids to make the neurotransmitters that are going to drive you to feel balanced.
We have one more question from Judy. Aside from sunlight, pills, milk, and mushrooms, how else can we get vitamin D in foods?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would tell you that I think eggs are one of the things that can help boost a little bit, but in general, vitamin D is usually something that's going to be synthesized in your liver. And the way we synthesize it is when the sun hits our skin, then we make something called melanin, and then that goes through the body to the liver to produce the vitamin D. So unfortunately, the way they are doing geoengineering with the weather right now, it is very, very difficult to get a solid vitamin D level with just the sun. So everybody that I work with takes vitamin D. I don't have a single patient that even comes to me that has been working with another provider that has not really been taking vitamin D or at least been told to take it. Okay. One of the things that can interfere with anxiety, depression, and then also lead to fatigue is caffeine. So if you're somebody that's pumping coffee all day long to kind of get you moving, then that's something you're going to want to try to reevaluate. There's a good amount of people out there that are poor metabolizers of caffeine. And when you're a poor metabolizer, it means that it doesn't clear your system as well as it might clear somebody else's. And so that can lead to sleep disruption. So if you're someone struggling with insomnia at all, obviously look at the food to make sure you're not eating processed food so much. But then also, if you're a coffee drinker, that would be something to cut out. Or if you're doing these energy drinks or you're doing a lot of chocolate in your diet. Coffee will also interfere with thyroid medication metabolism. That is something where, you need to bring in your thyroid hormone, and most of the thyroid hormones on the market are what they call T4. And the body has to take T4 and push it to T3 because T3 is what does all the jobs. And some people have issues with the metabolization of the coffee interfering with the way the thyroid med is metabolized. So they're never really getting it to the active form in order to be able to feel like their thyroid is working the way that it's supposed to. Coffee is always going to be high in mold. It's grown in a moist, damper environment. There's like 1 or 2 brands out there that would have reduced mold content. They're really expensive. In general, I usually tell people when they come into the practice and they struggle with fatigue to get rid of the coffee 100%. And you're going to feel a little bit more tired at first, but your adrenal glands, which manage fatigue and energy and stress, will get beaten down by coffee over time. And once you get rid of it, then you're going to start to allow your adrenals to work a little bit more the way they're designed to. If you're relying on coffee for energy all the time, you're going to get to a point where it's not going to work for you, and you're going to end up with adrenal fatigue, which is a whole nother thing in and of itself that we don't have time to get into. So just be careful. I mean, I don't think that, 4 ounces, 6 ounces in the morning, maybe 4 days a week isn't a bad thing, but just don't make it a daily regular habit. The other thing is there is some protein in coffee, although it's trace amounts that can get into your bloodstream and you can make antibodies to it. So if you're craving it, then typically you're probably making some antibodies and you might want to think about cutting it out for a period of time. Other things that have caffeine are going to be the tea, the cola, And then in the morning, if you like those warm beverages, consider an herbal tea. I really like doing ginger and turmeric. Turmeric cuts inflammation in the body. It's great for your gut. And then the ginger is very stimulating for the brain, and it actually is a little warming when you drink it. There are different companies that make various herbal teas. Traditional medicinals is one. India Origins is another. You can usually find those less expensive at a website called vitacost.com. Actually, if you want to do shopping online, and you can, for non-perishable stuff like flowers, body products, maybe you're looking at, organic pastas and things like that, Vitacost is a really good place to shop. You'll get it significantly less than when you go to the grocery store. And a lot of times when I can't find things nowadays at the grocery store on the shelves, I can find it at Vitacost. Let's pay attention to our gut, right? So the gut and the brain use similar chemicals, like I said. Only 1 in 8 people feel an issue. You should be pooping twice a day. If you're not pooping twice a day, then, or at least once a day, one good one where you feel good elimination, then your bacteria is not going to be balanced. Then the intestinal health is not where it needs to be, and it deserves some attention. So first, look at your diet. First, look at your water consumption. Get the whole foods in your diet. Get the processed foods out. Get the sugar out. Get the white bread and the white pastas out, and look for things that are, going to burn a little bit slower, feed the good bacteria, make you feel satisfied longer as well too. And then that should help the bowel movements come. And then if they still don't come, then that's where you probably want to maybe look at somebody taking a holistic approach to looking at your gut if you can, because you probably have a bacterial imbalance and maybe an overgrowth that you're not going to be able to just correct with food. Fermented foods are good too. I forgot to mention that. Let me go back there. Fermented foods would be like sauerkraut, kimchi, sometimes drinking probiotic drinks, yogurts. I'm not real big on milk product from a sheep, a goat, or a cow, but you could get yogurts like coconut, almond, cashew yogurts that are fermented, and you can even ferment your own vegetables. It's not hard to do. That's something that I actually have on my short list as a goal within the next couple of weeks. So you just get those glass jars, you put your vegetables in there, cut up, you fill it with water, you put in some salt, you put the lid on, you let it sit for a few days, and bam, you're growing good bacteria for your gut. Get rid of the dyes. The dyes in the food will cause hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder. Red dyes are notorious for migraines and agitation, irritability, oppositional defiant behavior. That's where you're just angry, and you just, for children that get dyes and they just are really hard to work with and deal with, and they just, don't want to do what you're asking them to do. Start looking at the dyes maybe in the diet. Those can be triggers. There's 2 preservatives that you want to keep an eye out for as well that I don't have on here. One of them is TBHQ. Literally, it will say TBHQ. Don't ask me what the chemical compound is that it stands for. That can cause a surge of glutamate in the brain in certain people. It can impact breathing. It can cause panic attacks, and you often find it in candy bars. Another one is sodium benzoate. Sodium benzoate can cause a lot of neuroagitation. A lot of times when I work with kids on the spectrum, cleaning up the diet is, makes them 50% better right out of the gate as soon as they get rid of the processed foods. It's like a night and day difference with mood and attention and focus. Make changes slowly. This is my last point. Be gentle to your body, be kind. If you've been a coffee drinker for years, don't go cold turkey. Start to, reduce the amount that you're drinking, or maybe do it every other day for a while, because you don't want to shock your system and cause more stress to it because you're not adjusting rapidly enough. Now, if you're going to consider maybe cutting a food or 2 out, I wouldn't do 2 at once. I would do 1 at a time. Typically, when people come into my practice with mood disorders, the 2 foods I have them cut right out of the gate are milk and wheat. And usually I have them cut milk first, because it clears your body in 72 hours and you're going to see the results more quickly. When your body has a sensitivity to it, it usually takes about 6 weeks for the complete sensitivity to be gone, where you're going to feel the best that you could potentially feel without that in your system. And then wheat would be the second one. Wheat takes 90 days. Gluten actually is in wheat, and that takes 90 days to clear your system. So people that come to me and say, oh, I've tried gluten-free, I didn't feel any different, you know, my mood was still not great. And I usually say to them, well, first of all, how long did you do it for? Secondly, you might not have been 100%, because 60% of what you put on your skin gets into your bloodstream. So if you're using lotions for your skin because your skin's irritated from bacterial imbalances in your gut, that's usually what drives the skin irritation issues and some mineral deficiencies. You know, you're going to want to definitely try to get the gluten out and make sure that you're not putting it on your body in, you know, oatmeal baths and oat-based skin products. That's something that you will frequently see. I actually had a new patient in today, and the mother came in with a child with autism, and she thought she was using a really clean, good lotion, and the lotion had casein in it from milk. And that was one of the things we said that we were going to get rid of to see if it didn't help with some of the behavior disorder and kind of the brain fog and the agitation that they were experiencing. So one of the things you could do too, if you want to try to identify some patterns with mood in food, is you can definitely just take a notebook, put a line down the center, and start recording for a week or two what you're eating and how you're feeling. So, you know, the top of the page is breakfast, middle is lunch, bottom is dinner, and then maybe some room for snacks in the evening if you're a snacker. And then on the right side, literally the morning through the evening, just kind of record at different times if you're feeling really agitated or irritated, if you're feeling down. And then what you could do is you can go back and kind of look for patterns. You know, maybe you're not feeling the best on Sunday. Maybe you're feeling depressed. Maybe you're feeling agitated or anxious. And if you look at the journal, maybe you'll see that on Friday you had Taco Bell in the evening on the way home from work, or you ate something Saturday morning, like a donut. So, you know, just kind of looking for patterns that you can kind of see where the food might be impacting your cognitive function and your mental health can be helpful. And then these are 12 foods that really pack a punch for the body because of the various minerals, vitamins, amino acids, and good fats that they contain. And that's pretty much all that I have for you, except going over some vitamins and minerals and just kind of telling you a little bit more about what they can do for your body. I'm happy to take any of the questions that are out there right now.
In regards to iron, what would you suggest we consume to increase our iron levels? Because mine are pretty low. I don't really eat red meat all that much, and
Okay.
I've been told that spinach isn't enough.
Yeah, so the ancient grains are pretty good for an iron source. If you need to supplement iron, my favorite product, which is actually originally a German product and it really helps the levels, is called FloraVital. FloraVital. You could literally, it comes like with a little shot cup that has like a 2 tablespoon marker on it. You could literally do a shot of that like every couple of days or daily for a while to get your iron levels up. And what's nice about that is it doesn't constipate you, and it's got rapid absorption because when it's delivered, it has some B vitamins with it and some vitamin C, which really helps with the absorption of iron. When you're eating the dark leafy greens, consider putting some lemon juice on it. That will help support absorption a little bit. Or some vegetables that have vitamin C would be lemon, oranges. You put some orange in a salad if you're eating a kale salad or you're eating a spinach salad.
That was FloraVital.
Yep, FloraVital. It's made by a company called Salas, SALAS, or Gaia, GIAA. I'm sorry, yeah, GAIA. Yeah, Gaia just, I think, bought Salas, so you might see that brand on it. Typically, it comes in a box. It's a bottle. You're going to want to keep it refrigerated, and the box is white and maroon.
Okay. Yep, I'm Googling it right now.
Okay.
you.
Yeah, and you can get that through Better Health and such, but if you go online and purchase it, you're gonna find it for significantly less.
Yeah, I do see some Amazon, iHerb, and VitaSave and VitaCost.com and stuff.
Yep.
Between like
VitaCast,
20.
there you go. I like VitaCast.
Well, VitaCost is the most expensive one. It's like $46 there.
Oh, really? Well, look at the ounces. Is it
That's
7
good.
ounces or 14 ounces?
Oh.
Because it comes in different sizes. So you might be getting like a 7-ounce bottle or like a 12 or 14-ounce bottle from somewhere else.
My Wi-Fi is slow, so it's still loading. Oh, that was 23 ounces, I think it says.
23 ounces, that's pretty good size. That's like the largest that they make.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does it last in the refrigerator?
Oh, it'll last a long, long time. And it's really actually pretty tasty. I mean, if you're thinking about how supplements taste in general, it tastes a little bit like an apple prune. I use
Oh.
that myself because I'm not a huge red meat eater.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
the
one of
box
the
has like
things
grapes
to-
on it.
What's that?
The box has like pictures of grapes or something on it, so it looks pretty.
Yeah. The other thing too with iron is that when your iron is low, you could have more hair loss. That's one of the things that's really important for, you know, keeping the hair intact at the root.
I do
And
shed a lot, so that would
Yeah.
explain it.
so, and then if you're shedding, you know, and your iron level starts to go up, if your ferritin level, Ferritin, you might want to get that checked, because if the ferritin level isn't moving, that's your store of iron. Then one of the things you could do to help that move is take biotin. Biotin helps bring the iron over into the reserve of ferritin, which is actually the perfect form for thyroid support, as well as energy production inside the cell.
That's BIOTIN.
Biotin. Yep, it's B7. B7 is biotin.
Oh,
Hi, Gretchen. I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation, and I had a question, please. And
Yeah, go right
is
ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I had wanted to know, you mentioned about the consumption of eggs. How many eggs do you recommend not to increase the cholesterol?
So I usually tell people that it's not about the total cholesterol. It's about the ratio of the good cholesterol to the total. So in my practice, I know traditional medicine's a little different than what I do. They would have you have a low cholesterol, but you got to understand cholesterol is what's preserving your brain. Cholesterol is what you need to make bile to help get rid of toxins. Cholesterol is what you need to make all of your hormones in your body. So if your HDL, which is your good cholesterol, is robust, then it doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is. You want your ratio. So you take your total cholesterol and you divide into it your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. And then the ratio should be 3.0 or less for optimal heart health. And if you struggle with getting your HDL up, then niacin, which is B3, is amazing for that. And it's also something that really boosts mood and can relax the body if you're anxious. Typically, it will cause a flush if you're not used to it. If you take it, it's not an allergic reaction. It causes vasodilation. And it's something that would get less over time. And it usually lasts about 30 to 40 minutes if you end up taking something like that. So I wouldn't say that there's a number of eggs. It really has to do with the individual. Some people have thyroids that run pretty high. And when you have a high thyroid, your cholesterol level is naturally going to be lower than somebody that has a thyroid that's just running in a sweet spot. And when you have a low thyroid, when you have a low T3, right? So there's different hormones the thyroid makes, but T3 specifically, when it runs low for a period of time, and your TSH is up, saying that, you know, your thyroid is off, your cholesterol level is going to go high. So if you have cholesterol levels that are way low or way high, and you're feeling some of those symptoms we talked about with your thyroid being off, then you probably want to take a look at your thyroid with your doctor.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on, there's different types of oils, obviously. We've heard olive oil is great, but recently in years, I've heard like avocado oil and
Avocado
safflower
oil is
oil,
good. Yeah.
but they're much
Avocado oil is good. I would say coconut oil is probably my favorite.
Hmm. For both
Some
cooking
with
or like baking.
Okay,
or all
so
of
if
it.
you're gonna, so olive oil is, it's interesting. You really don't want to heat it past 400 degrees, right? So, I mean, I would say like 350 to 400, that would be the max for olive oil. You're gonna start to change the properties in it. Typically, olive oil should be consumed cold or at a very low temperature for sauteing, right? The oils that you would be able to heat at a higher temperatures and not change the properties would be the avocado, the coconut oil, right? You could do some ghee. Ghee is actually a great fat. I don't know if you've ever used that. That is clarified butter. So there's no protein in it. It's just the fat from butter.
I haven't tried that yet.
I love it. I use that sometimes on, you know, when I'm sauteing things, I'll use it in sweet potatoes, when I'm whipping them up for a little extra flavor without actually using milk product.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
Any questions? I know we went past our hour, but this is just such good knowledge that we're receiving. So thank you
Yes, it
again,
is.
Gretchen. I am
Super
going to
important.
put in a survey in our in the chat box. So if you could do the survey, we really appreciate it. And I'm so happy that everyone stayed to the end. Like I said, we're 15 minutes past. So we do have some giveaways.
Can we see the previous slide again? The one
Oh yeah.
right before.
Yeah, let me see if I can figure that out. I
So
don't
once you do the previous slide, then we'll go into the giveaways.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not.
it came by like really fast.
I'm sorry. There you go.
Thank
You
you.
know, Ayana, if you want, you can just give him my presentation. I have no problem with that. And anybody can have a copy of it.
I put it in the chat. So if you would like a copy of the slides, please email me. I'll put my email address again.
The other thing is I gave you a couple of handouts that you could share if anybody's interested. I gave a handout on alkalinizing foods that you want to gravitate towards to alkalinize your body naturally, and then avoiding the ones that are more acidic. And it speaks a little bit to why that is important inside the body on that handout. And then there was one other one on GABA and glutamate and the balance in foods that have specific ingredients that you might want to try to avoid when you're looking at labels if you struggle with an anxiety disorder.
So please email me your email address, because I know some are on here that have not registered via Eventbrite. So just email me your email address and I'll send you copy of the slides in the paper, the slides that Gretchen was just talking about. So we're going to go into Wheel of Names, and I think I have everyone's name. So Gretchen, if you can stop sharing, I'm going to share my wheel.
Okay. No
So we
problem.
have 3 giveaways. We have a $25 Amazon gift card. We have a 30-minute consultation with Gretchen. Thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah.
And we also have a $99 value to Inception. This is the first, let me put my camera on. This is the first mental health gym. It's located here in Metro Detroit area, Farmington Hills. So I hope everyone's here. That is, you know, if they do win that one, it is here in the local Detroit area. And Gretchen, I'm not sure, you said they can either do a video chat or come into the office.
Yeah, I mean, if they want, I can do a Zoom with them. I can email them a link for a Zoom. If they want to contact me through my, office number, leave a voice message, let me know who they are. We could do a phone consult if they prefer to do that, or they can come in person. I'll set the 30 minutes aside to have them come in person.
Great. So I am going to share my screen. Make sure I have everyone that came on. I know we had a few people to come in. later. Let's see. Make sure I have it. Is everyone seeing their name? If not, let me know. Okay, I'm going to start the wheel. Here we go. Now this is for a $25 Amazon gift card. Lenora,
Yay!
congratulations.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, how awesome. Thank you so much.
So please email me or put your email in the email in the chat, or just email me to the DZ8776.
Okay, perfect. I certainly will. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Do we have something in the chat? Can't really. Okay. Let's spell someone's name. Okay, now this is for consultation with Gretchen, 30 minutes. Consultation, here we go. We have Sonia. Is that Sonia? Was that
Thank you.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi, thank you. I'm
You're
so
welcome.
looking forward to this. This was such a great information. I took a lot of notes, so thank you.
Yeah, well, I'd love to have you come in if you want to come in person, if you're local, or if you want to do it through Zoom, we can do that too. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm not local. I'm actually in Charlotte, North
Oh, wow.
Carolina. So yeah, so we'll have to do Zoom.
Yeah, well, what you can do is you can, I'll get your email from Ayana, or if you want to share it in the chat, if you're okay with that, I can write it down and then we can connect that way.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
All right, then this is our last one. And this is, like I said, this is a local gym here, the First Mental Health Gym. So here we go, Inception. Judy.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So make sure you send me your email. Now, with the gym membership, not membership, the gift card, the owner would like to have a consultation with all the winners just to give you an overview of the gym. So you will be, we'll be meeting again. You know, we have more sessions. So our next week will be on depression. Let me stop sharing. Next week will be on depression. Following that, we will have a session on suicide. And then last, we'll be bringing all the components together to bring mental wealth. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Judy, like I said, I'll be contacting you and we'll be meeting again. So to give you your gift card, and you'll be meeting with the owner of Inception. Anyone have any questions? Thank you again for joining. I know we're over our time, but thank you again, everyone, for participating.
Thank you for having me. Have a blessed night and enjoy your Easter if you
Gretchen.
celebrate.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Welcome.
Make sure everyone send me your email addresses. If you're still on, please do the survey. I'm going to paste the survey down. If everyone can do the survey for me, I really would appreciate that. Just click the link for the survey.